Hello, I was on mute. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to another Celebrity Special or Celebrity Square Special of the Access VFX podcast. This is episode 33 and our first ever live stream. So everybody make some noise. Come on.
Hey.
Okay, so this is the fifth part of our stay-at-home series, continuing to address our new normal. And the second part of our Staying Well While Staying In series, where we check in with our guests 2 weeks after the first instalment, where we discuss resilience and mental health and just how we're doing in terms of just keeping ourselves above the mental health kind of waterline. We all saw Jenny's diagram from the last episode. So I want to welcome everybody listening live.
Simon,
yes.
sorry, have you got your, I think you've got your, oh no, it's me, sorry. I can hear it coming through twice. I'm trying to work out where from. Is everyone else's audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay, carry on, ignore me.
This is live television, guys, live television. So I should also mention that George from Sanctus unfortunately sends his apologies. He's unable to rejoin us on this second parter, which, George, if you're listening, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because we kind of want to talk about where we're at 3 weeks into lockdown now, or 2 weeks after our last episode. So I want to kind of make this very clear, you know, on this episode, this live episode, there are no mental health experts on this call. And what we want to do is focus more on, you know, what we've learned during our mutual lockdown. So concentrating more on, you know, our learnings, our new challenges, more tips and advice to keep our kind of resilience and wellness on point. So that we can bring as much value to the episode as well, I want to kind of ask our live audience, not just to engage through questioning, but also share your own tips and advice too when the opportunity comes up. So we'll be checking the live feed. So please engage with it. We'll make sure we cover all of the points, because I'm not sure how many people we've got listening right now, because I'm reading from my lovely script. But we'll do our best to kind of cover everyone's points. And if anybody's got some great ideas, some great tips and tricks, please let us know, okay? So I'm going to dive straight into it by getting this lovely grid I see before me to introduce themselves. So let's kick things off with Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete Rogers. I'm the Managing Director of Bait Studio in Cardiff.
Back to Pete. Sara, come on, we rehearsed this.
Hi, I'm Sara. I'm the HR administrator of Framestore in London.
Thank you, Sara.
Hi, I'm Rory. I'm a VFX producer from Milk in London.
Thank you, Rory. Rory, it's your first podcast, so you're a newbie today, yeah?
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Paul Wilkes, Global Head of Talent Acquisition for Advertising for the Mill and NPC.
Did that without moving his lips as well, that was amazing. Next.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm Marketing Coordinator at Blue Zoo.
Thanks, Grace.
Hey there, I'm Tom Box, co-founder of Blue Zoo Animation Studio.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a recruiter at Foundry.
Thank you, Chloe.
Oh, wrong way.
Easy.
Hi, I'm Sara, HR Director at Jellyfish Pictures.
Hi, I'm Jez. I am the Production Technology Department Manager here at DNEG.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jez.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm the Head of Talent Development at Escape Studios.
Thank you, Andy. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenny, and I look after PR and comms at Milk. Brilliant.
Thank you, Jenny. And if you're new to the Access VFX podcast, I'm Simon Devereux. I'm the founder and director of Access VFX. So let's delve straight into it. So my first lovely open question is, how are we all doing? How are you doing now that it's like 3-4 weeks? Andy, thumbs up there. Anybody want to talk about how they're doing? Yeah, any new challenges that have come up? I'm going to start with Rory as our newbie. We'll work our way around.
Hi, thanks. I've been using the phrase surviving but not thriving.
Nice.
I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. Muddling through, but aware that we're in a incredibly different situation and finding the new normal.
Okay, thank you, Rory. Chloe, you had something to add.
Yeah, I think in the last few weeks it's gotten harder, especially on the recruitment side in some companies. And I think for me, the biggest thing I've sort of learned that works for me is structure in the day. Of really trying to balance my mental health by getting outside and doing exercise, as well as getting the time frames right compared to what I used to do in work. So that's sort of where my head's at.
So a bit more structure. Pete, did you have your logo up? Oh, you're on mute, Pete.
I was just going to say that, yeah, things have definitely changed since the last time you all spoke. I think at the time it was like, well, it's just like being in work, but you're at home. Yeah. And then the longer it goes on for, the more things change, whether it's a long weekend, whether it's different people being off, or you're trying to balance kind of social interaction, and sometimes having a bit, maybe going, well, do I need to speak to everyone I've ever met in the next few evenings? Or can I just just chill and step back? And I find actually finding time for yourself, and actually just, I think you're so conscious of having to act slightly differently than you would normally. You end up almost overcompensating. So I think this last weekend, I've just got to go actually just find a little bit more. Really.
I mean, on the last episode, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, I've found that there is a bit of routine coming into play, but definitely my kids are getting a little bit frustrated just with the sort of confinement, I guess, and the lack of kind of stimulus. I think they're missing going outside and going to new places, seeing their friends. And it's kind of, they've been really good and they're continuing to be great, but you can see that it's starting to get to them a little bit.
Yeah, Jess and Jenny.
I think what I've realised is there's definitely good days and bad days. I think, after the first podcast we did, that day I actually had a bit of a panic attack on the way to the supermarket. And previous to that, I was completely fine. I was helping everybody else. Yeah. So it just really hit me. And then since then, it's been okay. And then there's been other days when I've felt down again. But I think it's really realising that some days are just going to be good, some days are going to be bad. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. I think, again, it's the surviving whilst thriving thing, isn't it? Jenny, and then I'm going to loop back to Grace.
Yeah, jumping from what Jez has just said as well, it's accepting that there are going to be ups and downs. And then I think once you realise that, it's easier overall to get a bit more perspective rather than thinking, oh my God, today is horrific.
Yeah.
And the more time goes by, the easier. And I think for me, taking each day at a time has really helped.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of conversation around, it could be months, and that just strikes fear in the heart of a lot of people. So I think just surviving each day one at a time is really important. Grace?
Yeah, that's definitely been the way I've been approaching it. I think every time I thought of it as this long span of everything being so different, I know that was when things were getting quite scary for me. But I've been doing a lot of listening to my body, my mind, doing more of what makes me feel happy, and noticing when I'm having those bad days and what possibly has triggered that, and made myself feel not as great as I could have.
Yeah, and being unapologetic about doing those things that make you feel happy as well. Sara, Tanner?
Yeah, I think I was going to just... I think what it feels like is the franticness of that first week or so as everyone's trying to get into a new routine, when we've sort of been forced into it quite quickly, and the overstimulation of over-communication, Teams and Zooms and God knows what, video calls, which felt really, really heady and really full on. I think that bit feels like it's settling down slightly now. I think everything that everyone's saying there in terms of the good days and the bad days, and trying to take it day by day, let alone week by week. A lot happens within a week. So just trying to do it bit by bit, but also I think from my point of view, in terms of looking at internally how the communication that we're having with our teams, trying not to over communicate too much and give and push too much out there, and balance it between different types of personality types, really, or preferences, introverted versus extroverted, and trying to keep people connected, but without trying to do too much that is just not going to float someone's boat. Trying to find something that suits a little bit of something that someone might be able to get a hook into, that might make themselves feel a little bit better. So trying to creatively think of different things that might resonate with someone, across a big team, really.
Yeah, we talked a lot about overcompensation on the last episode, and how typically, because we also talked a lot about working from home. When you work from home, you're under normal circumstances, you overcompensate a bit and you deliver too much. And a few of you on this call, including our subsequent conversations, have said we feel busier now than we ever have 2 weeks ago. Has that changed now? Because a lot of you are talking about taking time out, the novelty's worn off now. So are we kind of getting a bit of control back to that now, do you think? Tom?
I was going to say it's especially weird after the bank holiday weekend when you haven't got an office to go to, and then you suddenly got to get back into the swing of work, but staying in the same room almost. I think that's kind of like quite a big impact. I'm sure a lot of people are going through at the moment, of how to really try and kind of egg yourself on to get back into the swing of things when there's no real step between work and home. So I think it's then you really need to kind of work out how you can differentiate the two as much as possible. I mean, partly through some of the things we talked about before in terms of having those routines, sticking to some of the same things that you did in terms of routine when you in the olden days, so to speak. But even if it's just going out for a jog or a walk in the morning, just to break up that getting up time to starting work time. I think all of that is been today. I felt that a lot more, especially after the long weekend.
There's been this mad run and then this brutal stop at Easter weekend, isn't it? Absolutely. Andy.
Yeah, I was just gonna, same as you, Tom. I found it quite, my eyes don't seem to be focusing very well. I've got a bit of RSI, I think, in my elbow as well. I think that's from WhatsApping too much and going back to the thing about information overload and what Sara said as well, things have calmed down. But I said, this will make you laugh. I said to my flatmate this morning, I said, I've got my trousers on today. I've been wearing shorts all weekend, I said, I've got my trousers on today, mate. That means I'm at work, okay? So
the distinction. Yeah,
I'm at work now. I've got trousers on, sort of thing. And I know it's a silly thing to say in many ways, but there is that point of just thinking, right, back at work now.
Yeah.
Back at
Need
work.
that mental switch, don't you?
Needed that time off to refresh. And but to be honest, I'm glad that I'm back at work now, because I was starting to feel a bit disconnected by Sunday and yesterday as well. And I was thinking, too much time to think is not good. And that day-to-day, taking things one day at a time is the only way to get through this, I think.
Yeah, that's a fair one. Thanks, Andy. Rory, you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah. So I have previously worked from home. Last year, I think I did 2 afternoons a week. And one of the things I learned very early on was defining a space and saying, right, when I'm at this space, I'm at work. And when I step away from this space, I'm no longer at work. I'm back at my home, and create that mental barrier between those two spaces to allow yourself a safe space to work, but also a space to step away from and remember that you are back at home. And it really helped with sort of stopping work encroaching on my personal life and help keep that balance and stop overcompensating.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We've just got a question come in. I'm going to come to Chloe, Jenny and Sara shortly on YouTube. So from Milio Polcaro, apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. So they've asked what changes for recruitment, or how the current situation, the C word, will change recruitment. So once we're all back in the land of the living, what's going to be different from a recruitment point of view, do you think? That's probably to our recruiters on the call. Chloe.
I think, to be fair, it's sort of a mixture of both. It's actually given us the ability to figure out how to do remote recruiting. So being able to get more involved in remote interviews, giving the hiring managers a better understanding of how to talk to people in a remote sense and be able to understand the culture aspect from that side of it. So for us, we're still being able to recruit remotely, and we're being able to onboard people remotely, but it comes with its challenges of being able to find the right candidates and make them feel as comfortable as possible, not being in an office environment when they're interviewing. So I think it's been quite enlightening, and I think it gives us a lot more to work with in the future when things go back to normality, of having both aspects.
Thanks, Chloe. Sarah Tanner, you were going to say something.
Yeah, probably echoing quite a lot of what Chloe said there, actually, that it's quite exciting in a way that we're kind of plunged into this new platform of the world's your oyster in some respects in terms of recruitment. So we're able now to recruit anyone from all over the world. We've got people working in India, we've got people working in America that we would never have necessarily thought of right here, right now. And we probably would have put maybe some of the old-fashioned barriers up in the sense of, no, we need everyone in the studio rather than, the remote working thing. I think from my point of view as well, there was the ever looming Brexit down the road and how that might impact us as we go along further down the line. And so it just has opened our eyes, perhaps just the right time, really, about what else is out there, what other talent can we kind of still utilize, still within the industry, as well as having UK teams as well and talent. So I think it's really exciting about actually what are the other options, and let's be really good at remote working as best as we possibly can within the confines of that being an alternative to studio working and all the limitations perhaps that come with it. But as Chloe said, having a really good onboarding process, really good induction process. How do we do that? How do we technically make it work? And how do we include them in a team and make them feel part of our company?
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Paul, you're going to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose a more kind of immediate effect for us, I think, will be that in the short to medium term, there is going to be more requirement for full CG and design-led projects rather than VFX, because obviously, as we know, live action shoots are severely restricted. So I think, we're starting to think about what our team might look like in the next, 2-3 months, and there might be a little bit of shift towards that. Obviously still photo real work, but potentially much more full CG.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Sorry, not Tom, Freudian slip. Thanks, Paul. Tom.
I was just going to say it relates back to our other podcast on kind of getting out there whilst staying in, which is, I think it really makes everyone really up their game when it comes to kind of presenting yourself and communicating. Because you're not going to be sitting in front of anyone in a meeting room being interviewed. It's all going to be online. Therefore, all your communication skills has to be absolutely better than ever to really to come across well. And there's no ability to kind of really to slip up there, because you're just you're very much leveled between everyone else, because geography doesn't really matter at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually, all of you have mentioned words kind of like exciting, creative. Is there something, coming back to our theme around kind of wellness and mental health and keeping on top of things, is there something quite enriching in this excitement, that we're changing the game, an opportunity to be more creative, to think differently? I mean, on a personal level, I have my ups and downs. I mean, the surviving while thriving thing's a great term I'll probably keep using throughout this episode. But when I feel down or have my bad days, I still get quite excited about the prospect of what life's going to be like after this. Tom?
I think, I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but I think there is that real positive, the fact that a lot of studios will really embrace work from home and trust their employees to work from home where it's they have permission to do it. And I think that really will hopefully make everyone's lives a lot more enjoyable, because they won't have to maybe commute every day if they can work from home a day or two a week, and have that nice balance between going into the studio and working from home, so they can kind of really get their day working for how they best work. So everyone's getting the best out of everyone, rather than being forced to work how one particular person decides to work.
Thanks, Tom. Andy?
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying about the excitement thing. It's funny, isn't it? It kind of ebbs and flows, and the range of emotions I go through personally are quite, same as everyone, I'm sure. But there's definitely a lot of excitement in certain areas, and I think that the idea of remote working again, particularly when I come on these kind of podcasts, I always think of it in terms of I try and put myself in the position of our students, particularly, or younger people who are entering the job market. And I just wonder if perhaps it opens up more possibilities for working internationally as well, for people, younger people who are new entrants. I mean, it's a comment, but I'd also be interested to hear what you guys think about that as well. Those of you that have facilities in different parts of the world, where actually, as we know, a lot of the entry-level jobs are these days, for example. So, Andrew Slushall made a very good point when I spoke to him recently. He's talking about making from crisis to opportunity. And I think that as humans, and particularly, we do work in creative industries, and I think that creative people will come up with creative solutions. That's what I'm hoping anyway. That's what I'm banking on, So
and we need to harness that as well. I think it's really key. Sara, you had a point. Sara at Framestore.
Yeah, just about like the excitement and the change that this is gonna bring. I think everyone I talk to, like one of the points that everyone, even if in different levels, agrees is that it's going to be a brand new world once we go back to our normality, because we're gonna, like, talking just about myself, I think I'm never going to rent a place that doesn't have a desk and a space that makes me work from home, because it may be that I want to do it, it may be that I have the necessity to do it in the future. But at the same time, I think I'm gonna appreciate so much to just go to the kitchen in the office and make my tea and speak to like 10 people that I'm not talking to right now, because there's some people that I only bump into in the kitchen and I don't actually work closely with. And I think people are gonna have an appreciation for being able to work from home and be more flexible, but at the same time, personally, I have a great appreciation about the office and having a place to work at and everything that is that community that we are trying to live as much as possible digitally, but of course, like, not being in the building is something that I personally miss.
Brilliant, thank you, Sara. Rory?
Yeah, just to echo a little bit of what Andy said, I think the excitement for me comes from the idea that, you know, it's no secret that living in London is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live and work from. And when you're looking for an entry-level position, you know, the financial implications of making that move sometimes hinder you from opening doors to certain opportunities. And I think the idea that we're seeing that remote working is working for a lot of people kind of opens up this whole box of sort of socio-economical diversity all over the country, where people who might not have had the opportunities before can provide their talents to bigger studios. So
it's because it has to work, isn't it? That's the thing with where you can't, there's no kind of question, it has to work. It's not like a trial. This is happening now, right? So
there's no motivator like necessity.
Exactly. No, so you're dropping some quotes. I love it. So I've got a lot of you lined up. A lot of phones have been handed up. So I'm going to come around to all of you. But Paul, you are the next in line to throw in your 2 pence.
Yeah, I was just going to say, on the back of what Tom was saying, really, I think that there's a trust is maybe the wrong word, but you know, there's this relationship going to be built up between companies and their employees that mean that, you know, when the chips are down, people are working hard and they're finding creative ways to work in very difficult circumstances. And so hopefully the long-term gain here is that this relationship now kind of allows that flexibility for people to work, you know, not following the normal day-to-day hours, and you know, be able to give their best for the companies, but in you know, in different times and from different locations.
Absolutely. Thank you. Tom, your
yeah, I was just going to say it does kind of create problems on the new entrant side of it, just because so many new entrants, especially even the younger you go when it comes to friendships, they only work when you have that physical access. It's very hard to almost shadow someone when you can't see them. And the same thing for runners. So there is a real issue we have to deal with in terms of how we can make sure that kind of thing continues at the moment, and work out how we can make sure that those entry routes don't fall away. So I think it's more important than ever that we really focus on those routes for new entry, and don't just become just take the easier of just picking those people who already have experience.
Yeah, that's a challenge for sure. Jenny?
I was going to say how it's a testament to how creative we are generally as human beings, that we're 3 weeks in now, and everyone's, if you think about how we've adapted to what the situation was pre this situation and how we are now, how far we've come in just 21 days. If we stop and look back at that, that's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine what it'll be like in a couple of months, right? It's going to be a game changer. Chloe, you had your phone aloft.
Yeah, I was just thinking one of the good things that we've seen, it's building a better relationship between remote workers and the office-based employees. Like the last few weeks has really given us a chance to get a lot closer as co-workers, as a business, rather than the people that are office-based. They'll get to do lots of different activities together. It's more combined, and I think working on a project that actually enhances that further down the line when things go back to normal is going to be really exciting for us.
Yeah, and relationships are still being enhanced, right? I mean, yes, we're not having that physical connection, but you can still keep those relationships kind of chugging along, can't you?
Definitely.
Grace.
Thank you. I've been just going on from that relationships thing. I feel like it's been a lot more deliberate than before when we were all in the same working space. I have to, I said in the last episode, but I have to make that effort to arrange. I'm talking more from a social perspective. I had to make that effort to arrange that video call, or kind of try and get people to do things rather than just sort of running into each other at the pub after work or whatever. So that's been a little bit sort of deflating for me, I must admit. Like at times I've really missed just, you know, speaking to people and it being quite easy in that way. I think I really took that for granted. But I've been finding inspirations in a lot of like unexpected ways. I feel like people dressing up on Zoom calls and silly stuff, really, honestly, just things that are unexpected, thinking a little bit outside the box within. Obviously, these are extreme confines that we find ourselves in. Finding those just tiny bits of silliness and fun have been a big inspiration to me.
Thank you, Grace. I'm going to just run through the next three of you. That's not great grammar. And then we've got a comment come through the YouTube channel. So Rory, you're going to add to the thread.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, this whole experience has really highlighted the fact that there seems to be this rigidity when you're working from a studio environment, that you're working, 9 to 5 or whatever. But, this has proven in practical terms that there can be more flexibility than that. And flexible working hours really seem to be working for us. And if you want to take an hour to take the dog out or go to the supermarket, it works. And I think that's a really exciting thing that would be good to carry forward.
Yeah, I moved a meeting to go to the supermarket, which never happened at work. Like it was important, and I needed to stock up. Sarah, Tanner, you were going to add to the thread.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to add probably to those points a little bit about. I feel like one of the traits that have been brought out quite a lot about this is about, to your point, Tom, earlier about trust. But people, I think, are being really honest about how they feel, and we're encouraging people to be really honest. So whether that's how they feel on the day, whether they need a little bit of help, we do like little pulse surveys just to check in with people to see how they're feeling really on a scale of 1 to 5. Are they feeling great, pretty good today, or are they feeling a little bit rubbish? Are they just as a get of an indication really of where different teams are, whether it's okay in one group versus another, just to get a sense really of where people are. But the whole thing, I have noticed people being quite honest with how they're feeling really, and it does help with being able to empathise with people who are perhaps in the trickiest, more tricky situations. The staff that we've had to put on furlough have been really, really honest and really grateful for some support and us being honest with them about where we are. And it allows people to be sort of empathetic with each other a little bit as well. So we try to, it's the balance, isn't it, really, between trying to be optimistic, trying to think about the opportunity, trying to be creative about what the world looks like as we evolve over the coming few weeks, and try and get back to some sense of normality. But so taking the best from it, but also just taking time, because it's not easy at all for many people, and we don't necessarily always know people's circumstances. So particularly in the visual effects side of things and live action, it's really tricky. That's the bit that's really impacted us a lot. So just having some balancing the way we talk to people, the sensitivities in conversations is really important. So be optimistic, but be, good balance, I think, is really important.
It's about being more acutely aware of each given situation, particularly from I imagine from a HR point of view. Everyone's situation is so different, and you would always interact in a different way in the office or in the studio. But now that you're completely disconnected, that's polarized even more, isn't it? I guess.
So that's tricky, having difficult conversations with people via Teams or whatever you're conferencing it is. Absolutely. When normally you'd be able to sort of have a really sort of quite close and sensitive conversation, but it's the best of a tricky situation. But trying to have extra sort of sympathy or empathy in that situation, really.
Thanks, Sarah. Paul Wilkes, you were going to say something.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to comment on the comment that came through from YouTube. I don't know.
You might as well. Do you want me to read it out, and then maybe we can all dive into it. So this is a comment from Billy P on YouTube. So when we were talking about kind of the junior and senior staff relationship, he said, I disagree to a comment a while ago. I think juniors need senior staff directly next to them to help, because chats and emails aren't really sufficient to help their progress or help solve problems. So Paul, did you want to jump on that? And then I'm going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, the thing that, we're not all going to suddenly shut up shop and have totally remote workers. That's not the future from here. I think that, what's clear is that there is the ability for more of our staff to work in a flexible way, not necessarily always remotely. And I think, the studio environment still is going to play a huge part in the creative businesses, both in terms of the nurturing of talent, but also the output of creativity. That environment where people can just share ideas and be creative together is really important. So I think it's not suddenly that this is going to change. Everyone's going to shut their offices and people are going to spread out across the world. I think those hubs are still going to exist, and but hopefully what we'll get is to a better place where the creative hub exists, but then also people have the freedom and the space to work from another location as well. I think actually for entry level, for new entrants, their first role may well be going into a studio environment, and and that's going to be important.
Absolutely, thanks, Paul. Rory, and then Chloe.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, sort of in real terms, funnily enough, the day that we went on lockdown, I was supposed to start training a new member of HR who joined the team, because that's where my background was within the company. And to be able to do that remotely has been difficult. And I've been sort of recording tutorial videos and sending them to her. But what I realized today is actually, although this is not the most ideal way of working, and one-on-one training is far better, what we're actually doing is building a database of these videos that are going to be there forever now, and building a real database of resources that can be used in the future. So there are positive aspects to working that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Chloe, you're going to add to that.
I was just going to agree with Paul really on it's for us, it's really about finding what works for people. So not everyone potentially has office based anymore, which is what our preference was really within the office, but it's actually finding what works best for individual. So some will work with remote workers and some will work as office workers, and trying to find the right balance for everyone.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Chloe. Tom.
I was going to say one of the best ways in terms of bridging that divide between the young people, or the new entrants, not even just young, the new entrants into the industry. One of the best ways of them to get access to more senior people, if they can't sit next to them, is through mentoring, of which Access VFX has got a very successful mentoring program. But that is almost as good as having someone sitting next to you who you can kind of like send work to and get feedback on it, but potentially even more so because they're not in the same company, so they can give you kind of more kind of generalized advice as well, rather than specific to that context. So
there's a call to action right there. Anybody listening, whether pre or post this episode, sign up via the website, get yourself a mentor. We're just about to renew. Thank you, Foundry. Thank you, Chloe and Foundry King. Got some good news to share with you all after the call as well about that. So I wanted to move on to over communication, because when we were talking about it earlier, about 3-4 weeks ago, I personally felt there's a lot of communication every 5 minutes. Even, I work in learning and development, so every training company is doing remote this, remote that, Zoom calls. It's really, really overwhelming. How are we balancing the kind of communication with our teams now then, and your direct reports and the people who are liaising with you if you work in a recruitment role? How are we getting the balance right between bombarding people with information next to giving them some rich content, and not just by watching this YouTube video, which will obviously give you lots of rich content? Does anybody want to take that? Or is it too hard a question? Andy. Andy, Tom, and Sarah.
Yeah, hi. This kind of feeds back into what Sara was saying as well about those conversations that you have with your wider teammates, company mates. Lots of people that I don't really speak to at all at the moment. I just honed it right down to thinking, who do I need to speak to get the stuff that I need done to be complete, to be completed. And it's quite, yeah, it's quite odd, really, in a way. Obviously, you realise that you miss out on other conversations that spark other creative ideas.
Yeah,
that's what gets missed, I guess. But it's just about for me, it's about being really focused and really making sure that I don't almost waste my time with unnecessary conversations, which maybe I did too much before. You could
maybe more focused. We're more of a well-oiled communication machine now, right?
But that was also one of the joys of being at work, right? That you see your other workmates and you're doing that. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we could do this. Yeah. And I do wonder if there might be a point at which that feels much. At the moment, you can kind of focus on what you're doing because you know that certain things need to be done. But at some point, you're going to really start to miss that wider communication, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In many ways, it does force you to be more acute and to listen more and to be more observant, ironically, when you're not there physically in the same space, right? I've got 3 of you to speak. I tell my language is terrible. I shouldn't do these so early on the way. 3 of you to speak, and then I'm going to move to YouTube. We've got a question that's come through. So Tom, you're going to add to the dialogue.
I guess on that note, I think it's really important to remember that everyone's different. So it's similar to some of the things that have been touched on earlier in terms of like activities that Sara was saying at Jellyfish, how you need to kind of create a range of things to do for everyone. But then there's a risk that just creates this bombardment of activities and things. So one of the ways we've dealt with that is trying to shift the ways the studios communicate. So there's not as much via email. So we've split kind of all the more of the social chat, put that into different kind of chat rooms, so people can just dip into that when they want, rather than being kind of bombarded with it mixed in with kind of work. So it's just trying to get everyone using the right channels at the right time so they can go to those channels when they want to, rather than it kind of being bombarded with everything, which can be completely overwhelming.
Yeah, like one size fits all communication, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, Tanner.
Pretty much the same, actually, probably for Tom and Andy there as well, though. I think what I've noticed is the need to be more succinct and probably direct to get an answer quickly, because I feel like I'm putting on too much if I'm trying to. I just need to be direct so I can get a clear answer so I can get on with something. And I also don't fill out that person's inbox with loads of little different questions. Really think about what I'm asking, what do I need? I think also what I'm encouraging my team to do is, rather than sending 15 emails to one person who's off on holiday today, or who I know is in a meeting or is tied up, save them all up and save it for the time you've got to chat with them at the end of the day or tomorrow morning. Don't keep sending emails or and filling up people's heads and with more lines to review and more emails to look at. And to Tom's point there, I think using the right channels. So where you might have emailed, now use Teams. Where you might have used Teams for a general chat, put it on the social chat and not put it on the general chat, because if there's really important information about how systems are working, or if there's a company-wide issue or anything, that needs to go in certain places. So it's redefining sort of the boundaries, I think, a little bit there. And being considerate about how people are receiving all this information. Just keep it to the right sort of channels, really. But I think to Andy's point as well, I personally feel like I'm moving towards my sort of personality or preference in the way I work. I am quite task orientated and I am quite direct. And I feel like I'm moving in that direction more, especially if I'm not talking to someone. So I personally have to be a lot more aware of how that might come across if I'm feeling like I'm barking orders, when I wouldn't normally do that when I see people, if I'm chatting to them in the kitchen, or you bump into them, or you have a meeting conversation. So there's a kind of, it's having a extra awareness about how you're coming across and an understanding of how that might be interpreted, which is really important, I think.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Rory, you were going to add to that. Do you have anything new to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think when you're sat in an office with someone, it's obviously very different than communicating via the internet. And it's very easy when you've asked someone to do something, or you're chasing someone or something, to look over and just see if they're doing it or not. Whereas you're sat behind the computer, you don't want it every 5 minutes. Oh, have you done that yet? So I think it's just a level of trust needed to be, this person is doing that and will let me know
Just leave them to it.
And I think there's also a sense of I get a lot of people message about, oh, sorry, I just saw your message, I've been doing this, and it's nice to remind people you don't need to justify what you've been doing. I know you're busy. Just there's no justification needed.
Yeah, just checking in. Yeah. Chloe, did you have your hand up?
No, not for that one.
No, cool. No worries. Have I missed anybody out? Because I got feedback from my wife the other day that somebody was putting their hand up loads on the last call and I completely blanked them. So I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone out before I go to YouTube. Okay, so we've got another question in from Aidan Lonergan. He said, it was slightly touched on before, but are there any tips for maintaining a good work-life balance? I'm finding it quite difficult to divide work from my personal life. Pete, and then Chloe.
I would say it's different for everybody, but I would say having some kind of structure, but it doesn't have to be your normal structure, just a structure. So for me, I'm trying to get up at the same time I would, even though I haven't got to drive anywhere. I'm trying to work out in the morning when I would have been going to the gym, just to try and give my brain some sense of the start and the end of the day. Particularly after this long weekend, you start getting to the point of not knowing what time it is or what day it is. I think you need to give yourself that. But also, I think just remember to log off, turn your notifications off, give yourself time when you're not available. Because I think because everybody's working at different times, everyone's shifted their patterns to fit working from home. What it can mean is at the time you need to not be available, other people are very available. So it's just basically just don't overburden yourself with being around all the time. Just allow yourself space for whatever that is you need to do, whether it is to go for a walk, whether it is to go and get some shopping, whether it is to check in with one of your relatives, because your personal life is bound to encroach, vice versa, because you're actually at home, and also there are wider concerns in the world which we're not all used to dealing with during a working day. So I think for me, some kind of structure, but also give yourself a break, that don't feel bad in either direction if you're doing a little bit more work here or if you're not available to work at another time.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you, Pete. Chloe, you were going to add.
Yeah, massively agreeing with Pete. I think one of the biggest points to make is that everyone is different. So what essentially works for me or with Pete might not work for someone else, and how they balance everything. Like I will get up at the same time as well. I'll either go for a walk around the park, I'll do my 10-minute exercise online, and then at 12 I'll do another form of exercise, get my lunch, and then at about 4 I will go for a walk, because I just think I need to break up the day a little bit more than I would do when I'm at work, because I will sort of go on a tangent in work and I won't be able to be as proactive without it. So I think that's how I structure my day, and at the beginning of the day write down sort of what you want to achieve. You might not get everything that you want to achieve, but it's just having a little bit more structure that you can actually tick things off when you feel like you've done something is really working for me.
Thank you, Chloe. Jenny.
I would say definitely make sure that you take regular breaks. I know that's really obvious, and Pete and Chloe have talked about structure, really important. So taking regular breaks and just checking in with yourself. Am I having a good day? Am I not having such a good day? What do I need? And then carry on that at different points during the day, and find a routine that works for you, not necessarily, as Pete was saying, the same one that works for everybody else, because we're not just working from home, we're at home during a bigger thing that's going on beyond this.
Yeah, it's definitely bigger than just working from home, for sure. Sara, Tanner.
Yeah, something very similar to everything that you guys were all saying about it. One thing I would say is the structure, whatever you decide that you need in a day to be at your best, tell your line manager or tell your producer about when you need to be away. So if your structure isn't necessarily, in the studio, it might have been lunch was between 1 and 2, and people generally had coffee at 11 o'clock and at 3 o'clock, or a sort of relatively fixed structure. But as Pete and some of the guys were saying, it's not like that for everyone. It's really, really different, and just be open with your manager about it. So if you're feeling a bit rubbish right now and you hadn't normally planned to go for a walk right now, go for a walk right now, and just just be honest and say, look, I'm just having a moment. I just have to get away from my desk. I'm going to go out for an hour and I'm logging off for an hour. I'll be back. Just let people know where you are, so they don't think, A, don't worry, and then B, don't think, what's happening? I'm expecting them to be doing something. So just really important. Just keep talking. I think that's the main thing.
Brilliant. Thank you. Grace.
Yeah, I think I work closely with Tom, who's also on the call, and he's been really good about sort of communicating. These are the times that I will probably not be online. These are the times that I'm probably not looking at my messages. So that's been quite inspiring for me to sort of learn from that. There are ways like on Slack, for example, you can kind of turn off notifications and it will show that you're not currently online. You can snooze on Google. If you're worried about that kind of level of communication, those are steps that you can take to communicate to other people that you are not available right now, and that can sort of help yourself knowing that you have communicated that to everybody. And I think a lot of people who struggle with work-life balance are really struggling with giving themselves permission to relax. So what I recommend is having, like everybody said, not everything works for everybody, but I remember when I was quite young and I was writing my dissertation, I struggled with finding the line between stopping doing university work and going into the evening time. I would every day, 5 o'clock on the dot, didn't matter if I had hit my word count for the day or whatever, I would stop and I would do a workout. I would do a dance or do some yoga or go for a walk. I know everybody always says do exercise, it helps, and it's kind of annoying to hear that sometimes, but that was what worked for me at the time when I was struggling to find that balance. So I think something that's a marker can often help.
Yeah, I like that, and being quite not too rigid, but sticking to it. And we've talked about structure a lot on this this call, haven't we?
Exactly. You are allowed to relax.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. I love it. Thank you, Grace. Paul.
Yeah, I was actually going to say exactly the same thing, as some sort of shutdown routine. I think, it's a common theme that comes up in lots of different tips around productivity and also balancing, well-being and mental health when it comes to work and stress. But, having a shutdown routine, one of the things is to get rid of the things in your brain that are work related. So, writing a to-do list for the next day so that you can then close that, put it away, and that the next morning you've got your list ready to start on, but then in the evening you can turn off. Sure, lots of people are very guilty under normal circumstances of diving into their emails and looking at notifications in the evening, which is fine, and that's the modern way of working. But I think right now it's hugely important that everyone does give their heads a little bit of a breather in the evening.
That's fair. Thank you, Paul. Tom.
I was going to say too, a way I've heard, I've also tried to do myself, is by separating your normal kind of the way you work in a non-job sense. So for example, in my bedroom, I've repurposed a chest of drawers into a desk. So I'm not using my desk downstairs, which has been turned now into a school, but for my kids. But in the same way, so if you're doing work in the evening, try not to do using your work laptop and maybe just doing some doodling using a pad or using your phone. So try and work out what is your work kind of kit and what's your kind of relaxing kit. And that doesn't, I'm not saying you have to have 2 different laptops, but you can just think in that kind of sense. But if you think in that sense of how can you try and close your work laptop at the end of work and then find other ways of relaxing that don't involve using your laptop.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Tom. I'm going to go to Andy and then Jez. So Andy, you were going to add to that.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to say hi to Aidan. He's one of our students, actually.
Oh, nice.
So, and everything that everyone said is really great points. And I just thought I would make one distinction. Obviously, we are at work and students aren't as such at work. And we have obligations. Obviously, we're still contracted to do certain things. We have set working hours, don't we, really? In theory, generally speaking, it's still kind of pretty much the same, isn't it? Somewhere between 9 and 10. It's easy for us, I think, to keep those mindsets of being at work. I think it's challenging when you're a student to continue doing the same level of work, as it were. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here. I suppose what I'm trying to say is don't be too hard on yourselves. Do what you can. I really like Pete's point about find some kind of structure. It doesn't have to be the perfect one. We're not looking for perfection. at all in any of the things that we're doing. We're looking to make things work as best we can, and you'll find your own way. But I think the most important thing is know when to stop working. I think that's more important than anything in a way.
Yeah, I think the shutdown routine that Paul talked about and the rituals that Grace mentioned were really, really key. We move to Jez now. Jez, you had your hand up. Sorry, Andy, I'll come back to you.
No, it's cool, man. It's cool.
Jez.
So similar to what everybody was saying, but for me, I found sort of finding a purpose for my life part of the day is that, you know, utilizing my skills in other ways. So recently so I can sew and I really love organizing things. So I've recently started a scrub hub in my local area to sort of gather people who can sew to make scrubs for the NHS. And actually having that sense of purpose outside of work has been really, really helpful for me. Again, it can be a little bit stressful, but just sort of having that community in the local area and just knowing that whatever you're doing, you're utilizing your skills to do something else that's really helpful. And I think that's really helped me a lot as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jez. Yeah, I like that kind of, finding that connection and more connection in the community, because we're not getting it through our colleagues physically, are we, in many ways? So I'm going to go to Sara, Jenny, Sarah, Tanner, and then I've still got a couple of questions on YouTube. So if we can kind of rattle through the three of you, I'm going to start with Sara from Framestore. Sara.
Yeah, just connecting to what Andy was saying, I'm also a student, doing my master's part-time. And I think for students, especially people like me that are working and studying, so have work, study, life balance. I think one thing I found is that it's an extra layer of stress, and it's something that you have a completely different way you're living it, because studying is something that you get evaluated on, and the people react differently, because there's some people that are throwing themselves into studying and like studying 10 times more because they have more time. And people like me that like I'm way too stressed, and work I can shut off. Study is the thing at the back of my mind that makes me feel guilty, because oh my god, I'm reading something that is not related to my coursework. I'm watching a movie. Well, I should be studying. So I think trying to get rid of that guilt, because this is something that we're all experiencing, and we're reacting differently, and we're finding our balance differently.
Forgiveness is key, isn't it?
Just not be too hard on ourselves. Some people are catching up on all the courseworks, and some people are just looking at a blank piece of paper, and both are fine, because there's no right and wrong. There's just a big grey area.
Okay, thank you, Sara. Jenny.
I think echoing what Sara was saying about finding a balance, as what I said before, just really learning to check in with yourself at least once or twice a day. Check in, how am I feeling? What do I need? What works for me? Maybe it's what Jez is doing and really getting involved in the local community. But for someone else, that might be too much. So it's really listening to what you need yourself.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure put on everybody to be kind of writing the novel that they've been thinking about writing forever, or learning to play the guitar and actually relax, calm down. Not everything works for everyone. Sarah, Tanner, you had your logo up.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think just on all of those points, I think there are kind of mental health. England talks about kind of 5 key things around positive kind of mental health and keeping positive. And I suppose it's a bit like when you have a baby running through the cycles, what you need to keep it going and keep it happy, really. But the 5 key things being around connecting. So connecting with people, your family, friends, so talking and listening and feeling like you're not isolated, either being active, so doing what you can do. And maybe that's walking, maybe that's just walking around your garden or a little park, or sitting, somewhere locally, be a bit active. Taking notice of what's around you, keep on learning new skills, read a new book, and giving something back. So I think Jez was talking there about sewing and giving something back and making a scrub. So it doesn't have to be anything massive, but if you've got in your toolkit, there's five things to sort of think about. What could I do in that just to make me feel I'm doing something for me, but in my time. So I think that's always quite good, quite helpful kind of things to think about.
Thank you, Sarah. So we did have another question. I didn't want to make sure everybody gets a voice on this call. And so I had Vanessa, who, I mean, it's a pretty easy one to answer this one. Is the Access VFX mentorship program also available for students in Germany? The answer is yes, sign up. Access www.accessvfx.com/mentors. Go to that link, check it out, and sign up. I think we're growing all the time at the moment. I think especially on the back of our last mentor episode, I mean, we're almost kind of tipping our 500 users now, which is pretty incredible. So I think this crazy time we're living in is doing a lot of good for e-mentoring, for sure. Thank you, Rory, there. So I'm very aware this is live, so we don't have the benefit of an edit after this, right? So we're live and direct, and we've got 5 minutes left. So unless there's anybody else on YouTube, Tom, Grace, do you have any additional questions on there? Or does anybody want to quickly post anything?
There's one from Quang Van saying mentoring, tutorials and online courses, a majority to be paid for. It's harder to get a job nowadays. How would one progress as an individual for a better portfolio?
Wow, that's a good question. Anybody want to quickly take that one? Recruiters in the room?
I'll give a self-plug for Anim Dojo that's currently free. I'll put that one in there, sign up there, animdojo.com, which we're currently doing free to get free training and help.
Great. Rory, Tom? Rory, and then Andy, and then Paul. Rory, go.
Yeah, there are a lot of free resources online, but obviously as well, you've got the mentorship program, which will give you one-on-one access to people in the industry, and there's no better way to learn than directly through someone working in it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rory. Andy?
Hi. Sorry. I was just going to say there's loads of good free access stuff on the internet, isn't there, all over the place. But obviously, a bit of a plug for Escape. Check out Escape Studios. We do taster days and online tasters and things like that as well. So please have a look. Get in touch.
Thanks, Andy. Paul?
Yeah, sorry. Everyone's just saying there is loads of free stuff, but I have noticed that a lot of the paid sites and providers are offering tasters and free access to some of their content for free. So if you go on the hunt, I'm sure there's more stuff available than there ever has been.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And yeah, I should also kind of shamelessly plug Access VFX, because we are planning a version of what was the animation summer school. We're going to call it something completely different this year, and that will be completely free online events that will take place that should support your professional skill set as well. Is that fair to say, Tom? I know we're kind of colluding behind the scenes, aren't we?
Yeah, I think hopefully it'll provide an invaluable way of getting not just seeing some kind of master classes like we did previously, but also getting feedback on your work as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, so we've got a few minutes left. Anything else on the YouTube thread? If we have anything after this, by the way, so if anybody wants to post anything on the YouTube page, we'll probably weave in some answers perhaps in the introduction on the audio version, perhaps. Could be a good way.
There's only one. I think there's one more question from Nellie Luckett, who said, "What's the best way to reach out to studios to get voices heard whilst in lockdown?" But I think we talked about that for about an hour on our what's that? I can't remember the name of that podcast.
Standing out while staying in, episode 1 of the series. So yeah, on this YouTube page, check it out for sure. Okay, well, I'm going to take photos of my screen. So everybody wave. Lovely. Good job. And I want to thank all of you for getting involved. So thank you, Pete. Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jez. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Andy. Another great episode. I'd love to keep these going, just to see how long Pete's beard gets, for example. How, and Andy's beard, he's growing a fine bit of facial hair there. But maybe we come back and do something similar again. It seems to have kind of morphed into something around resilience and mental health, but also around a career as well. So this may come back. It's nice to see you all again. I feel like we're kind of feel like you're regular panelists on my imaginary TV show. But thank you all for giving up an hour of your time. I know a lot of you are on annual leave this week as well, so I think that went well. Thank you to anybody who's listening, who volunteered questions, and stay tuned. We're going to be putting some more episodes out. The next one we're hoping will be on personal brand, which could be really exciting. So stay tuned and thank you. And if you want any more information, go to the Actors VFX website, because there's a ton of stuff on there, access to the podcast, access to mentorship, access to blogs, information content. So stay well, look after each other and yourselves. God, I'm sounding like Jerry Springer now. Take care, and thank you for listening, and thanks for getting involved. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.